Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as we do some work in the circular rose garden. So let's go. Just to give you some perspective, we're on the east side of my house. There's the vegetable garden in my backyard. And this is where the rose bed is. The daffodils in the center have gone by. And there's really nothing else in this bed except for a couple of stray annuals, which I'll show you once I get working in this bed. So the plan is I'm going to be edging this flower bed and pulling out any weeds, and then I'm going to start planting in here. I'm not really sure what I'm going to plant, so it'll be a surprise for both you and me. So let's get going on the edging. I like to use what's called a half moon edger, and I'm just making a very small cut in this flower bed. I don't want to make it too much work. I just want to make it look nice and clean and neat. So I'm going to go ahead and just finish edging this bed, and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. As I've been edging, I just wanted to show you my process for what I do after I cut the grass out. I'm basically using a hand rake, I guess it's called, and I'm just going to tug on the areas that I cut. And you can see here some of the grass. There are the roots. The soil is pretty good in this area. I don't think I've ever amended it with actual compost, so I really need to do that. It is a little on the heavier side. I'd say a little bit almost clay-like. So what I did in the fall was I did amend this flower bed with shredded leaves. And that's what you see over here. And that should help loosen the soil a little bit over time. So now that I've done that, and by the way, I'm wearing a coat, even though it's 80 degrees out, because the horse flies were attacking and biting. It's part of gardening, right? So I'm just going to take some of the shredded leaves, and I want to mix it up with some of this dirt here. The leaves are also acting a little bit as a mulch, which is kind of nice. I noticed I really didn't have a lot of weeds this spring in this bed, and I think that's a big reason why. When I put down the shredded leaves, I actually didn't think it looked that great, but now that it's had time to sit here over the winter and break down, I actually like the look of it. So that's pretty much what I'm doing is, again, I'm just pulling it, getting off as much of the dirt that I can. And I'm just going to keep doing this job as I go around the circle. And I'll put this in the compost pile. I didn't get around to deadheading my daffodils here in this flower bed, so I'm going to show you quickly how I do that. All I want to do is just snip these off. That way it doesn't put the energy into seed. I want it to keep feeding the bulb. And even though it is June here in New Hampshire, these daffodils still look great. The foliage is still green. I don't want to cut them back. I think part of the reason they're green is it's been pretty cold here, and also this area of the bed gets irrigation. So it probably is helping the bulbs just stay healthy and keeping the foliage green. So I'm not going to cut these back. I'm okay with looking at them, and I'm just going to work around them as I work in this flower bed. Last year, I planted the blue bedder salvia, and which is also a type of sage. And I didn't grow any this year, which I'm kind of sad about. But the good news is I do have a few seedlings in this bed, probably about 6 or 8 of them. Today's pretty hot. Tomorrow's going to be pretty hot, but pretty soon we're going to have some rain. I'm going to move these guys around in the bed. I really want the salvia towards the center of the bed. They get really tall, they branch out, they're a purple color, and they're going to look really pretty in this bed where most of the roses are pink. Also over here, this is a yellow colored annual, and it's called Biden's. I have that also scattered throughout this bed. I just can't give up seedlings. So on that rainy day, I'm going to dig some of these up, pot them up, put them in some of my containers, and move them around this bed as well. You can see that some of my roses are budded up. This is the only one in this bed that's yellow. It's really pretty. So it's going to be putting on a nice show pretty soon. I also wanted to point out, even though I came in this bed and cut back a lot of dead growth, I obviously missed this one, so I'll be clipping that off as well. Every so often you have some roses that just send up this random shoot. For this year, I'm going to leave them because some of them are budded up, but by fall, I probably should try to keep all the plants about the same size, so something like this might end up getting cut off. I just wanted to point that out. Two things to point out here. Number one, I obviously missed cutting some of this back, so I'm just going to cut out the dead growth. Also, this daffodil here should have been moved towards the center of the bed. I'm going to try to move it as long as I don't damage this rose right here. I used to have a bunch of tulips in the center of this bed, but I dug them out last year. I clearly forgot that one, plus there's one over here. I'm going to try to dig those out, dry the bulbs, and then plant them in pots this fall. Now that the edging is done, weeding is done, and I've also moved a couple of the spring bulbs, I wanted to show you the plants that I've picked out for this space. I'm very excited about it. So I have purple azuratum. It's an annual. I started it from seed this winter. I showed you in a video all the plants that I started from seed. This was one of them. And all the plants that I started from seed will be so happy to be put in the ground this time of year. So what I did was I put them in between each rose plant. So I have two roses here. I placed an azuratum in the middle of them. Most of the roses in here are pink. There's one that's yellow. I thought the purple would look nice. I still have the purple plants that overwintered from last year, which are the blue better sage, or it might be salvia. I'll put the right name on the screen. But that's a blue or purple color. Gets very tall. I will be moving that on a rainy day, and I'm going to put it right in the center of this bed. The other plants I wanted to point out, over here I have a white Shasta daisy. I know it's not an Oxeye Shasta daisy. I believe it's an Alaska Shasta daisy. But anyway, it's a perennial. And I think that's going to look really pretty, having some white in here. And I basically spaced them so that every time I had a bunching of daffodils, I put a Shasta daisy here, and I put another one very close to it over there. And in between each Shasta daisy is a perennial coreopsis. They don't get terribly tall, but I'm happy with the placement of them. I'll see how they do and if I still like it as the year goes on. But I thought that that color, the orange color, would look nice in this bed. And other than that, we'll have the tall purple in the center later in the summer. The other thing that I wanted to mention was I also want to add some coleus in here. I started this coleus under my grow lights, and look how beautiful they are. They are just so precious. What I like about them is not only is their foliage beautiful, it's an annual plant, but they just produce so much color. I also love that they send up the shoots of flowers. They're a purple color. You can see where I'm getting at. I have a lot of pink. I'm trying to bring in some more purple. I think the two colors will complement each other really nicely in there. Plus, you have the different shades of pink inside of the coleus. I'm going to be placing these on either side of the azuratum. I think that will look really nice. I have plenty of them. I have some water here. I'm going to make sure I give each plant a drink of water as I'm planting it. And then I have a slow release fertilizer, Osmocote. I've been using this quite a bit. It's a large bag. I'm going to put just a small sprinkling of it in each planting hole for the annuals. The perennials really don't need it. It's the annuals that need that extra fertilizer. So I'm going to do it with the annuals. And let me get planting. I'll show you what it looks like when I'm all done. Everything's been planted. All of these plants are just going to get bigger over time. There is irrigation that comes to this bed. So this is, again, the azuratum. On either side, we have the coleus. And the coleus are going to, they should fill up this spot like this. And this azuratum should get bigger. So this will be really nice along here. And the colors are a mixed color for my coleus. I collected the seeds last year, so they're just random coleus plants. And they will get bushier. And if I need to prune them back a little, I'll do that during the summer. Let me show you where the rest of the plants went. These are where the perennials went. They look a little sad. They'll bounce back. The white Shasta daisy. We have some coreopsis here. It's the lance leaf coreopsis. and another Shasta daisy. I also want to mention I'm going to continue deadheading these as they bloom. I'm almost positive that they'll keep reblooming. I'm definitely positive the Coreopsis should rebloom through the summer. The key is just deadheading the plants. And then over here where there's space, that's where I'm going to put the blue bedder sage or the salvia. And that will fill in nicely in this spot where when these will go by and die back, the salvia will take over. I'm very excited to have tackled this bed. I know that the freeze definitely affected my roses, so it set them back a little bit, but they are going to bounce right back. I'm so happy that they have buds on them, and I can't wait to see all these plants get bigger. And I'm especially happy that I was able to reuse perennials that I basically had in a holding bed in a weedy section of my yard. So be sure to keep following my videos. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Until then, make it a great day with gardening.